A full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces, Sunday, September 7th. Riptide alert. This full moon will bloom at 11:08 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 2:08 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8:08 p.m. in Rome. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video I'm going to talk about this very powerful, karmic, emotional, full moon, total lunar eclipse in Pisces. I'm going to talk about the important aspects it's making. I'm going to talk about everything we can expect to be represented under this full moon total lunar eclipse. I'm going to talk about which signs this eclipse is affecting the most personally and which degrees. You definitely want to listen to this video if you're a Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Cancer, Scorpio, Taurus, Capricorn, or even a Libra or Leo. All of these signs can be affected personally in different ways by this eclipse, which I'm going to talk about in the video. I'm going to talk about some of the collective expressions that we can expect as well. And in the end, I'm going to do a tarot pull from 4 of my favorite tarot decks and see how each different deck wants to weigh in on the eclipse with a 1-card pull. But first I want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It helps me in the algorithm. It helps me to grow my community and grow my channel. And it puts me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. I do these videos as, marketing tools to grow my business, so that I can, earn my living being a full-time astrologer and tarot reader. And I also use it as an opportunity to share my gift with others, because I think that everybody who wants access to astrology should have access to good, sound astrology. And it's something that is very helpful and soothing and inspirational to me in my own life. And so I want to share it with others. I'm currently at about 906 followers. My goal is to break the 1,000 milestone by my birthday, which is October 8th. So as a birthday present to me, would you please subscribe? If you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, please share the channel with your friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors, people in your workout class, whoever that you know are into astrology. Tell them about me, my channel, my readings, and please help me grow my client base, so I can continue to show up here for you all, and also for myself in my own life. And now, without further ado, I'm going to get into the translation of this very powerful karmic lunar eclipse in Pisces. So lunar eclipses happen with the full moon. Full moons always bring culmination and illumination. We have a full moon every month, and it's a culminating and illuminating point of every month. And depending on the sign it's in, these are the kinds of themes that full moon will bring up. This full moon is a total lunar eclipse. So the Earth's shadow is passing. The Earth is passing between the sun and the moon, covering the light of the moon. And so there's a shadow over the moon. And that shadow can bring up the shadow on planet Earth. It can bring up, in our personal lives, it can bring up the shadow within ourselves, or it can bring up the shadow within others. And that can be shocking, it can be disquieting, but these are things that need to become that need to come up so that there can be awareness and, acknowledgement, and then hopefully some kind of integration or healing can take place. So it's all for our spiritual growth individually and for our evolutionary growth as humanity. In ancient times, the ancients associated eclipses very much with, the death of kings and queens, the death of rulers, sudden rises to power, sudden falls from grace. Eclipses bring wild card energy. Eclipses hold a lot of history in them. They, for humanity and the collective, they hold history from, former periods. But even in our personal lives, they hold history from, past lives. And even if you don't believe in reincarnation and past lives, which I think at this point a lot of people do, but even if you don't, they hold the history of past lives within this life that you're currently living. Like sometimes I look back at my 20s and that seems like a past life. My childhood seems like another past life. Even the different decades of my childhood seem like different lives because of what was going on. And so you can look into your past lives in that way, even sometimes, to see what the eclipse energy is bringing in. And I'm going to talk specifically about those dates that you can tie into this eclipse as well. But in the beginning, I said Riptide alert because this eclipse is in Pisces, so it's a watery eclipse, and it holds metaphorically, and for some people, and in some cases quite literally, Riptide energy. And, it's bringing up a lot of emotion, and there is also kind of a sense of finality and endings. This eclipse is co-present with Saturn, who just moved back into Pisces. If you haven't already, go back and watch my Saturn back into Pisces retrograde video. It's a very important video. It's a very important transit and an important time. We are in the midst of the final rinse of the old world. And, many people are aware we are in a new world now. Everything is different than it's been in the past. This summer of 2025 was a lot of foreshadowing to our new life that doesn't really start until February of 2026. But right now we are kind of being pulled back in a whirlpool, kind of riptide, kind of current, to deal with some things in our old life that need to be resolved. They need to be finalized, completed. There's goodbyes that need to happen. There's closings that need to happen. There's surrender that needs to happen. And we're getting pulled back into that before we can move back into our new life. And that's the Saturn and Pisces energy. But this lunar eclipse happening in the same sign, they're related. Astrology is truly a holistic art, and we always have to be taking the entire sky into consideration in any transit that we're talking about, any lunation that we're talking about, because it all plays a part. But in these videos, as astrologers, it's much easier for us to break it down into sections to transmit the information to you, because otherwise it's just too much. And every single transit holds so much wisdom and so much information in it. And so this lunar eclipse in Pisces, so a full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposing each other. So the sun is in Virgo as this lunar eclipse is happening in Pisces. And so right now the Virgo Pisces axis is being lit up in all of our charts with this full moon energy, because it's also marking the beginning of being in an eclipse portal that's taking us through to the New Moon solar eclipse in Virgo. And I know some people get freaked out by the word portal and think, okay, now it's getting a little too woo-woo. But when I say a portal, it's like we're between eclipses, and like quite literally, like the light of the moon is being obscured and then the light of the sun is being obscured. So the light is off on the planet. That shifts things, you know? When we're in an eclipse portal, there are some things that we cannot see. There are some things that are being obscured from view that are very significant to our lives. During an eclipse, fate is at hand, you know? The veil between the worlds is the thinnest. Eclipses are exit portals for a lot of souls. If you think about, you know, our incarnation on this planet, metaphorically, like, you know, we take a plane ticket or a train ticket to get here, and then we take a train ticket or a plane ticket to leave. You know, this eclipse portals are times when it's like a quadruple decker train is leaving and a lot of souls are rushing to the station to leave with it, you know. And and so when we're talking about the Pisces Virgo axis, we're talking about the axis of health, we're talking about the axis of service and sacrifice, we're talking about the axis of spirituality versus materialism, we're talking about the axis of the dream versus the details and the work and the realities that it takes to achieve the dream. You know, we're talking about the axis of creativity, you know, the vision, but also the critique and the editing in the creative process. You know, we're talking about the psychic realm versus the, you know, very analytical, realistic brain. All of this stuff is present on the Virgo Pisces axis. All of these kinds of topics can be illuminated under this total lunar eclipse. And again, it's bringing things up. It's bringing things up from the depths. It's bringing things that have previously been hidden in the shadows to the light. And, you know, Pisces is, well, let me say that the Jupiter is the host of this full moon lunar eclipse. And I love that for us. I love that for this eclipse because Jupiter is currently exalted in Pisces. So there is this sense that this lunar eclipse, as much as it's bringing up a lot of shadow, you know, grief, pain, emotion for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, even if that's what your experience of this lunar eclipse is, just know that it's being carried by the great benevolent of the sky, Jupiter, the bestower of grace, the bestower of mercy, generosity, higher order, higher law. All of this is being guided by a very benevolent energy. And it is for our greater good, which brings me to the point that the North Node is also in Pisces, and the North Node has been in Pisces since January 11th. The nodes of fate have been on the Pisces Virgo axis, and so this is a North Node lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is very close to the North Node, and the North Node is so much about our dharma, our place in the cosmic order, our higher purpose, our North Star, our highest potential. And so this eclipse is getting us into alignment with that, which is really, really beautiful. It's getting us into alignment with that as humanity, and it's also getting us into alignment with that in our personal lives. And so even if what that looks like during the time of the eclipse and during the time of the eclipse portal is more like riptide, whirlpool, tsunami, hurricane energy and events in our life, because Pisces can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of emotion that's clouding, you know, how people are moving in the world. And so, you know, it can be a time where it doesn't seem like things are going in our favor, or it doesn't seem you know, and again, I'm going to kind of take it through the signs because some people, it'll be different for different people. But for everyone, it's getting us more into alignment with our North Star, with our direction in life that is based on our higher purpose and our spiritual values and principles, our creative values and principles. Sometimes for some people it's getting us more into alignment with our health. For some people this is going to be a very sobering experience, and they will, you know, kind of the shadow can have to do with the addictions, you know, but the alignment with the North Node and the opposition with Virgo can be a letting go. There's a lot of letting go happening both in the Pisces and the Virgo sectors of our chart. And if you put your rising sign in the comments, I will tell you, I will respond to the comment, and I will let you know which house in your chart the lunar eclipse in Pisces is lighting up and what themes and topics this is bringing up for you specifically. So I'm not going to go through it at the end of the video, but I will, if you put your rising signs in the comments, tell you specifically. And that will fill in the grid even more, even though all of the information in this video will still be very useful and accurate. I get more and more specific once I know your rising, and if I'm looking at your chart, I can get very, very specific. Because this lunar eclipse, when you're reading for an individual, I'm going to have to take into consideration what sign their moon is in, because it's a lunar eclipse. Depending how the moon is placed in your chart is always going to describe how you're going to respond to eclipses. Also, you know, if you have sun, moon, or rising in Pisces, this eclipse is going to be very personal to you. With the rising or the moon in Pisces, you can feel it actually in your physical body. And you can, you know, or it can be in your emotional life. You can feel this tumult in your emotional world that's going on. The shadow can be coming up from within you, you know, grief, pain, past trauma coming up to be dealt with at this time. If you're Virgo sun, moon, or rising, the lunation is going to oppose your planet. So you may be feeling some oppositional forces that may be, you know, of an emotional nature, of a health nature, of a spiritual nature, of a creative nature. And so it can be a tough lunar eclipse for Virgo rising. For Virgo, you really need to be letting go of any toxic Virgo traits like controllingness, perfectionism, you know, being overly critical of yourself or others, those types of traits. And, you know, for Sagittarius and Gemini, will be feeling it very strongly too. You know, for Gemini, sun, moon, or rising, it will be squaring your planets, you know, and for Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising, it'll be squaring your planets. And, you know, it can just bring up, again, this energy of feeling like you're in a riptide. It can be an emotional riptide. It can be a financial riptide. It can be a travel riptide. It can be a literal riptide. It can be a health riptide. It can be a relationship riptide, you know, but you can't fight the current. You cannot fight it. You have to, if you try to fight the current, you're going to get exhausted and possibly drown. Just lay back and float, wait for the waters to calm. And then when you see that the waters have calmed and the waves are going back to the shore, catch a wave and swim back to the shore. You know, once this riptide calms down, everybody is going to be swimming back to shore. Everybody's going to be getting a lot more grounded. But right now we are in the throes of the riptide. And let me tell you, I'm a Gemini rising. So, you know, anyone with Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, sun, moon, or rising, this is going to be very personal because it's lighting up the most important axis of your chart, the chart that has to do with yourself and others, your home, your family, your career. And so I am reporting live from the, from the scene. And it's happening for me. And like the advice I'm giving you, just float, just float. Do not fight the current right now. Things will calm down. It's on the mutable axis, right? Pisces is a mutable yin, watery temple of Jupiter. So everything is shifting and changing. Nothing is staying the same. There's a lot of pivoting about faces, changes of mind, which brings me to the fact that Uranus is in Gemini, stationing at the same time of this eclipse, bringing the element of surprise, disruption, shock. It's in Gemini. People are changing their minds. People are saying shocking things. There are unexpected social interactions. There are technological blitzes on the collective, power outages, possible volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, earthquakes. All of that is reflected by Uranus stationing at the same time as the lunar eclipse. And if you didn't already, go back and watch my Uranus stationing retrograde in Gemini video, because that's going to give you a lot of information about what to expect as well through this eclipse portal from September 7th to September 21st. I'm recording this video Saturday night from my living room, the night before the eclipse, so that I can post it before the eclipse. But yeah, if you are a Cancer or Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, you are really going to love this eclipse. It's creating a trine. You're going to be experiencing a lot of flow. You're going to be experiencing a lot of creativity. This could be very healing, cleansing, purifying. It seems that you may be experiencing a lot of the more high vibrational emotions like joy, generosity, empathy, compassion, creativity, inspiration. So it's really a very beautiful aspect for people who have a lot of placements in Cancer and Scorpio, sun, moon, rising. Even if you have a stellium, it's going to be really kind of creative, inspired, loving, flowing transit. If you have Taurus or Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, or even a stellium, it's going to be it's going to create opportunities, but it's a more subtle aspect for you. The sextile is a subtle aspect. It's of the nature of Venus, so it can be creative, it can be fertile. For Taurus and Capricorn, you guys are earth signs, so your signs will be trining the Virgo south node sun, which is like, it seems like you guys are just like gladly, it's an opportunity for you to gladly happily release some things. And it looks very material, like you guys are releasing material things, like, so you may be decluttering, getting rid of things you no longer use, and you may be, or you can even be donating money, clothes, things to causes. That's a very spiritual expression for you. There's an opportunity, and there's also an opportunity to grow things: monies, babies, homes, businesses, hair, whatever it is that you're trying to grow. There's an opportunity here, but you have to, for Taurus and Capricorn, again, it's subtle. It could just pass you by. If you have to recognize the blessing to receive it. You have to co-create with it. So I talked about the squares, the oppositions. I talked about the trines. I talked about the sextiles. Oh, the quincunx. I want to talk about the quincunx. So if you're a Leo or a Libra, it's like you're on a sailboat headed for the Riptide, but like adjust your sails immediately kind of thing. It's more like for Leo and Libra, sun, moon, or rising, or if you have a stellium in either of those signs, this eclipse, the way it interacts with your planets is a quincunx aspect. So it's an irritation, possibly an annoyance, just you're out of alignment. Again, this is a more subtle one. And for sensitive types are going to feel it more, but there's an adjustment that needs to be made for you to get into alignment, and that's going to be involving, you know, the Libra Pisces house or the Leo Pisces house, where the adjustment needs to be made. And again, for anyone watching this, if you put your rising sign in the comments, or your sun, moon, or rising, I'll give you a little mini interpretation of which house this lunar eclipse is in and how it's interacting with your placements. But yeah, that's kind of a brief synopsis, not taking it through all 12 rising signs, but telling different signs how it's affecting you. And is there anything else? Well, let's do a little tarot pull. The tarot cards might actually remind me of some more things I want to say. Oh yeah, in general, this can be a very psychic time. Pisces is one of the most psychic energies there is. And, you know, I think that this, for some people, it'll be very much of a channeling energy and an energy of connecting with the ancestors, communicating with the other side, receiving transmissions and messages. You know, not for everybody, but for some people. You know, for some people it's going to be more of a spiritual or religious experience. For some people it's going to be more of a healing and health experience. You know, for other people it's going to be more of a service and sacrifice experience. You know, for others it's going to be more of a creative experience or artistic experience, dealing with like music or dance or filmmaking or photography or painting. You know, Pisces has to do with images. So, you know, different people get affected in different ways, but let's see how the tarot are going to weigh in. I decided for the occasion of this lunar eclipse, I would do a tarot pull from 4 different decks. So first I'm going to do the Rider-Waite deck tarot pull, and the Rider-Waite, the Hermit. So the Hermit, this is about a period of solitude and reflection. This is about, you know, maturity and wisdom. And yeah, there's a lot of that with this Pisces full moon total lunar eclipse. It is a time for reflection, certainly. It's a time for solitude and meditation and inner work, you know, really getting in touch with your inner world, you know, your inner guiding light, your inner GPS system, you know. The Hermit represents, you know, it's an older man. In the tarot, this card is interestingly enough associated with the sign of Virgo. But in terms of this Pisces lunar eclipse being co-present with Saturn, I think of Saturn as older people, and Saturn having so much to do with the experiences in life, the tests and the challenges that bring us wisdom and maturity and greater insight. And that's what this Hermit card is really all about. And so, you know, Saturn entered Pisces in March of 2023, and something shifted at that time in our lives. And right now we are in the process of the completion of that cycle over the next 6 months. And this lunar eclipse is highlighting where we need to heal, you know, where we need to grow spiritually, you know, where we